Natural Habitat Adventures is pleased to bring you this webinar today, The Wonders of Wild Botswana. It's presented by Simon Stops, and he's coming to us from Johannesburg, South Africa. Simon started working as a guide in a private game reserve adjacent to Kruger National Park in 1999, and after 5 years, he was hired to train up-and-coming guides out of Johannesburg. But naturally, after just 1 year, he couldn't resist the call of the bush once again, and he returned to where he has been leading small specialty safari groups ever since. Since those early years in southern Africa, where Simon became one of the region's most knowledgeable experts, his guiding focus has expanded to East and Central Africa as well. And as a Natural Habitat Hall of Fame expedition leader, Simon shares his interest in wildlife and photography with our guests in a variety of the continent's most remote locales. And so we're delighted to have you here with us today, Simon, to talk about Botswana. So I'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you very much, and good day to everyone wherever you may be. I'm sure you all at different times of the day throughout the world. It's 9 o'clock at night now in Johannesburg, and we're just getting into the summer season, so things are warming up this side. I just wanted to express from the outset how honored I am to see how many people have taken time out of their busy schedules to log into this webinar and just listen to me chat a little bit about Botswana, a country that I'm really, really passionate about, and the wildlife and people of that area. So I'll get stuck into it straight away. I think you had enough of an introduction to me. For those of you who don't know me, that's me on the right-hand side of your screen, having paid one of my esteemed guests to laugh at one of my jokes. So that is me, and yes, I've been guiding natural habitat trips from 2005, so I've been intimately involved with natural habitat for 13 or 14 years. I'm very proud to be a member of their family. Like it was said, I've guided trips throughout Africa, and I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time in Botswana as well, and it really is one of my favorite areas due to the diversity of habitats there, the amazing culture. It's a fantastic, safe country, and it's a country I really enjoy supporting. So just to kick it off at the beginning, just to highlight where Botswana is, I've got a map here, southern up to East Africa, and this basically shows where Botswana is. It's a landlocked country down in southern Africa, bordered by Namibia, Angola, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa to the southern side. As far as size goes, you're looking at about 220,000 square miles. That's how big Botswana is, so nearly as big as Texas. And it's got a population of only 2.2 million people. So this is one of the truly special things about Botswana, is not a lot of people living in a really big country. So that's one of the truly special things about Botswana. Today I'm going to focus predominantly on the Natural Habitat Secluded Botswana trip. We've made a couple of changes to the 2019 itinerary, and I'm going to be focusing on those changes here. What I'm going to do at the start, I just want to give you a brief overview of the itinerary, just so you understand where it starts, where it ends, and which areas we visit along the way. And then as I go through the presentation, I will zone in on each of these particular areas and highlight what the unique aspects of each of these key areas are in this fantastic safari. The itinerary kicks off at Tokolaya, which is a camp located at Livingstone, which is where Victoria Falls is. So it's on the Zambezi River. We spend 2 nights at Tokolaya in Zambia before driving across to Kasane, which is in Botswana. And on that day, we will do a late morning boat cruise on the Chubby River, which is an iconic thing. I'll chat a little bit about that later. And then from there, the rest of the safari is in Botswana. After Kasane, after the boat trip at the Chubby River, we fly down to the Linyanti area, where we will spend 3 nights at Linyanti Tented Camp. It's a fantastic flight here. As you can see, on the northern side, or the right-hand side of that arrow, we fly all the way down the Linyanti water riverine system as well as the Chubby system. So it's a spectacular flight that. After 3 nights at Linyanti Tented Camp, we then head right across into the heart of the Okavango Delta, where we spend 3 nights at Jacana Camp. The main focus there is on exploring the diversity of the Okavango Delta. You can see the Okavango Delta is the pan-shaped area here. I'll just highlight it with my mouse. So this is the main part of the Okavango Delta. And here, this area is known as the Panhandle, and then up to the top is where the water flows in through Namibia and initially from Angola. And just to highlight, that's where WWF is doing a lot of work with the CASA project just to secure the future well-being of this Okavango ecosystem, which is a truly pristine ecosystem. From Jacana Camp, we will then fly across to Gomoti Tented Camp, which is on the southeastern edge of the Okavango Delta, for 3 nights again. And after 3 nights of game viewing at the Gomoti Tented Camp, we then head across to Maun, where we finish up, and the safari ends at Maun around about midday, in time for people to catch connecting flights out of Maun back into Johannesburg, or alternatively to other areas in southern Africa. So that, in a nutshell, is an outline of the itinerary. I just want to touch on, in broad terms, what, in my opinion, are some of the key unique aspects of this safari. The first one, and this is a really important one for me, is the quality of the guides or expedition leaders on this trip. Some of you might know this guy. It's a guy called Ona Basimani, who's one of our expedition leaders on the secluded Botswana. I'm not 100% sure what he was doing here or where he was. But he's an experienced guide. It looks like some pretty clear water, so I'm sure he was trying to get the key shot of the day. He's an avid photographer on it. A beautiful thing about having a guide with you is they're with you from start to finish, and they can build the itinerary from the beginning to the very end. You don't hear the same story each time you arrive at a different camp. You just get to learn more and more about the areas in which you're in, and you can literally peel away all the layers of the safari and get to really understand these ecosystems. Just to highlight, in Botswana as well, these guides will in fact drive the vehicles and track the animals as well. In terms of getting around on the itinerary, yes, your private guide is going to be with you throughout. Most of the linkages between camps will be done with a light aircraft. It's just the first trip from Livingstone across to Kasane, which is by road. And that is a really interesting transfer, which I'll chat about a little bit later. But most of the linkages are on light aircrafts like the Cessna Caravan. And they really are. It's an easy way to travel. You literally get on and off the planes at ease at the airstrips in the bush. And it literally forms a great part of the journey, offering some spectacular views of the ground below while you're flying around. Another thing for me, which is a key part of this itinerary, is just the diversity of habitats that one visits on the secluded Botswana. These trips have been planned extremely carefully, maximizing your time in a given area. And between Livingstone, the Linyanti, the Okavango Delta, and Gomoti Tented Camp, we really do visit 4 completely different areas with a multitude of habitats. This is a photograph of the Savudi Channel and a herd of buffalo in the Savudi Channel, and we'll visit the Savudi Channel when we're up in the Linyanti Tented Camp area. It's not just about diversity of habitats, but it's also a diversity of accommodations on this trip. From Tokala at Livingstone to Gomoti Tented Camp, Jacana, Linyanti Tented Camp, we really do visit some unique camps. Linyanti Tented Camp, Gomoti, and Jacana, it's just going to be the secluded Botswana group staying there. So you really do have an exclusive feel in small, intimate camps. So this really is a key part of the experience. Then from a number of people on the trip, these trips are sold to a maximum of 7 people. These are the vehicles that we do our safaris in. And each person in that vehicle will have, we call it a window seat, where they'll be sitting on the edge of the vehicle. The guides are experts at positioning these vehicles so that you can get the best potential photos. So it's small groups as well. And then the last thing I want to highlight, which for me really is a great selling point, is from a photographic point of view, these trips really are spectacular. This is a photograph that was taken by Onabasimani, who I showed you earlier, and this was up in the Linyanti area, where we stay at Linyanti Tented Camp. So just to reiterate, for me, the key things here: privately guided with top expedition leaders, seamless links between the various camps, a diversity of habitats, a diversity of accommodations, small groups, and great photographic opportunities. Also, just to touch on one of the things that is a little bit unknown about a safari until you've been on one, the food in the camps is pretty spectacular as well. This was taken up at Tokolea, so this is just an afternoon tea setup at Tokolea. So there's plenty of great food there and a lot of local traditional fare. And just highlighting on when you are in the camps, again, this is a great opportunity to interact with the local people in the area. All the camps are staffed by people living close to those particular camps. And it's one of the best ways to learn about the culture of the people and the area that you're in. It's something which I think is not talked about enough before people go on safari, but I always stress with groups that I'm leading how I encourage people to spend time getting to know the people in the camps, because they really will leave having made great friends there. So those are, in my mind, some of the unique selling points just pertaining to this particular trip. So now just to hone in a little bit more on the particular areas that we visit. The first camp and where the trip starts is Tokolea, which is situated in Livingstone. So down here you can see where the Zambezi River has these squiggles. That is Victoria Falls here. Tokolea is situated about 12 kilometers or 8 miles upstream from Victoria Falls. Livingstone is the town on the Zambian side of the river, and on the Zimbabwean side of the river, this is the town of Victoria Falls. The beauty about Tokolea is you're close enough to the falls to easily access it and experience the beauty of the falls. We will take you there on a guided trip of the falls. But you're also far enough away to not be exposed to all the busyness and hubbub of the falls, because it can be pretty busy down at the falls themselves. Tokolea is also situated within the Mosio Tunya National Park in Zambia, and this is home to a small population of white rhino. And one of the activities we do when we're at Tokolea is track the white rhino. So we spent 2 nights there, just to show you what the rooms look like. And this will be your first exposure to a tent on your safari. And I use the word tent quite loosely. You can see it is a canvas structure here, but the tent is built on a wooden platform. All of the tents at Tokolea overlook the mighty Zambezi River in front. And here I've got a picture which just shows the interior of the tent. So there are glass windows, but a canvas wall. The beauty of that is, and all of the camps are built in that way, is we want people to be able to hear the sounds of the African bush at night. At Tokolea, you can hear the sound of the Zambezi River. And when you're on safari, you can hear the sounds of hippos, insects, birds, etc. calling throughout the night. So just to touch on some of the activities at Tokolea, obviously a major attraction is going to Victoria Falls. The Zambezi side of the falls, which we typically visit, is most productive, in terms of water flowing over from the months of April through to about July, early August, depending on the rainfall that year. And then it starts to dry up. As the Zambian side is drying up, we will take you across to the Zimbabwe side, just to show you in this image. This point here is on the Zimbabwe side, and this is on the Zambian side here. The falls typically dry up starting this side and then dry up like this, but there's always water here by the main falls, so you do get spectacular views from the Zimbabwe side even when the river is dry. Another activity that we do at Tokolea, and this will typically be done on your day of arrival when you get into camp early afternoon, is we'll take you on a sundowner cruise on the Zambezi River. And this allows you a great opportunity to not only get great sunset photos on the river, but also to see some of the wildlife that's associated with the river. This is a photograph of a group of white-fronted bee-eaters, and they're often nesting colonies of these beautiful birds in the banks of the river. Another major highlight of the time at Tokelea is the rhino tracking experience. There are rhino in the other areas in Botswana that we visit, but this is without a doubt our best chance of seeing these white rhino. So that's a key attraction for this area. So essentially we have one full day at Tokelea. We have an afternoon on arrival where we'll do the boat cruise, a full day the following day where we visit the falls and bring in the rhino tracking. And then we'll leave pretty early the following morning to do the drive across to Kasane, which is in Botswana. Most of the drive will be done in Zambia, and we actually cross the Zambezi River by boat at a place called Kazangula. And I just want to highlight it's a unique border crossing here because in crossing from Zambia into Botswana, it's actually 4 countries that meet here. This is Zambia here. This little spit of land here is Namibia, and this is Zimbabwe on the right, and Botswana here. So it makes for quite an interesting crossing. I also think it's a great experience to experience some of the more remote border crossings in Africa, and that you're not just on a flying safari where everything's easy, and you do get to really experience some of what happens on the ground here. We get into Kasane mid-morning that day, and then we'll board a boat to do a boat cruise along the Chubby River. The timing that we're there is key. Mid to late morning is when a lot of the animals, as it's warming up, it's when they come down to drink at the Chubby River. And the secluded Botswana typically runs throughout the months when the area is dry and the animals are forced to come down to the Chubby River to get their water. So it offers some spectacular photographic opportunities where you can get at eye level to animals, particularly things like elephants, crocodiles, buffalo, hippopotamus. And if you are lucky, you might be fortunate to see some predators when you're down there as well. But it's typically not the time of day that they are active. We then continue on our way to Linyanti Tented Camp. So we head back to the Kasane airport, and then we fly across to the Chubby Airstrip, which is located here. I mentioned earlier, but as we're flying on this trip, we'll have the Linyanti River and the Chubby floodplain to our right-hand side. So spectacular views as we're flying on this route. We then get into Linyanti Tented Camp mid-afternoon, probably around 3 o'clock. And from there, we drive up through the Linyanti concession to Linyanti Tented Camp. While I've got this picture of the Linyanti concession here, I just want to highlight a few things about it. And this is one of the unique aspects of this itinerary. The Linyanti area is a private concession. So this line here is the eastern cut line. The southern boundary is pretty much this water body here. There are some areas south of it, but this is the Zambezi Channel, so it's an iconic water body. And then to the north and western side, it's bordered by the Linyanti River system. And similar to Chubby, what happens with this area is that as it dries up, there are seasonal pans in this area here, but the game congregates along the riverine areas here. So although it looks like a long drive from the airstrip to Linyanti Tented Camp, what we do on the day of arrival, we make this into a game drive. We drive up onto the riverine area, and then we head all the way up this riverine forest, which is super productive, up to Linyanti Tented Camp, where we spend the next 3 nights. The focus in the Linyanti area is game viewing by vehicle. This image here showcases the Linyanti Tented Camp and the Linyanti River system. Like I said, it's a private area and super productive in the dry season. The elephants, as you can see here, flock down to the river, particularly during the heat of the day. I see there's also kudu in the image here on the left-hand side. And each one of these is one of the guest tents that people will stay in on the secluded Botswana. The camp has 4 tents in the main area, so again, small, intimate camp. Just to show you what the interiors of the tents look like, and again, super comfortable. All the tents on all of the safaris here, ensuite bathrooms. It really is, they're luxurious tents. So from a game viewing point of view, just to highlight the key things, the Linyanti is an area that's famed for its elephants in the dry season. and you do get fantastic opportunities to see these great animals. It's also an area which is well known for African wild dogs. Some of you may have been fortunate enough to see these guys on past safaris, but they're one of Africa's most endangered predators. There are only about 5,000 of them left in the wild now, and the Linyanti area is a particularly good area to see them. This year we've had 3 packs of dogs that have been utilizing the entire concession area. And what they do when it's dry, they often chase game towards the Linyanti River. As you can see, it looks like that's what's happened here. The Linyanti area, from a predator point of view, is also a great area to see leopard, and again, fantastic leopard viewing, particularly along the riverine woodland areas. From an activity point of view, most of what we do in the Linyanti is game drives in vehicles, but we do have a hide here where you can get out and literally stand and watch the wildlife come and drink, particularly later in the day. If you have a look at this picture, you can see you get super close to the wildlife here, and those of you who are super clued up on animal behavior will just be able to see that this group of elephants are really relaxed with the presence of the people here. You can see this one not even looking at the people, the same with this one, only worried about getting to the water. So you really can view them in a safe environment and get really, really fantastic footage of these great beasts as they coming to drink here. So we'll spend 3 nights then at Linyanti Tented Camp, just exploring the area, the Linyanti River, the Zambezi Channel, and the woodlands in between. And on the final morning there, we will head back down to the Chubby Airstrip, where we will take a flight across the heart of the Okavango Delta into Jacana Camp. I popped this Google Earth image here just to show you how Jacana is literally surrounded by water. All the dark areas here will be water areas, and to the western side of the camp here, we've got some seasonally flooded grassland areas. You can see this is the airstrip for Jacana Camp, so we will land at this airstrip, take a short drive here to a boat station, and then typically boat into Jacana Camp. When we're at Jacana, we also have the opportunity to do game drives on these areas here. So you can see there are some roads on these areas. These areas are known as the Jal Flats, which when the flood is in, these areas can have a little bit of water on them, maybe a couple of inches of water, which is perfect habitat for antelope like lechwe. So it really does offer you some iconic Okavango Delta experiences here out of Jacana Camp. So as I mentioned, the main focus of our time at Jacana is to explore and understand the Okavango Delta, how it works, and to just get out and experience a different part of the safari experience. We'll be spending most of our time in a vehicle at Linyanti Tented Camp at the end, and also at Kamoti. But at Jacana, we'll mix it up a bit, some time in the vehicle, some time on a boat, and some time on a makora, which is a dugout canoe, and I'll show you that just now. So this is a photograph of Jacana when the flood is right in. This is the main area here, and you can see people, to access it, they boat into camp. There's a private swimming pool here, and this is one of the tents at Jacana. The area I showed you earlier to the west of camp where we do game drives is this area at the top of the image here, the Jal Flats. So just showing you what a spectacular wilderness area this is. This is a view that has been taken looking into the main area, which is a double-storied main area. So again, from the upper level here, you've got spectacular views. As I mentioned earlier, this really is a dynamic ecosystem. And just to highlight how dynamic it is when the floods come in and out, I've got a photograph that was taken from camp looking out on exactly the same area where the last picture was taken from. This picture was taken when the flood was not in, so again just showing a grassland area, and the previous one exactly the same area but when the flood is in. So it really is a diverse ecosystem. So in terms of activities there, I touched on it briefly. Makoro. So a Makoro is a dugout canoe trip. It's steered by we call it a polar, the guy with the pole there at the back, and he propels the Makoro through the water. This is a great opportunity and a great way to see and experience some of the smaller things of the Okavango Delta. I think when we on safari, we all get very caught up in terms of what we're seeing, but we don't focus enough on what we're hearing, what we're smelling, and what we're touching. And when we're in a Makoro, we do get an opportunity to expose all of those other senses to this beautiful wilderness area. We don't have the sound of a motorboat engine, we don't have the sound of a car engine, and we literally can listen to all the sounds of the African bush. And we get up close and see small things like the water lilies, the reed frogs which inhabit the Okavango Delta. We will also do some boating safaris in a steel bottom boat from Jacana, and these give us an opportunity to get out a little bit further and explore further afield. Again, we can head through some of the thicker channels here, the papyrus channels, and we don't have to be as fearful of things like hippos and crocs when we're in the steel bottom boat as we do when we are in the small Makoros. So it does give us an opportunity to get out a little bit more on the water and explore further afield. And the opportunity to see some spectacular bird life like this malachite kingfisher, which is really common in the Okavango Delta areas. As well as this beauty here, the Pel's fishing owl. For the last couple of years, the Pel's fishing owls have nested in the area very close to Jacana. This is one of Africa's most sought after birds, and it really is a spectacular place to see them. The pristine water ecosystem, the abundant fish life in that area makes it the perfect habitat for these guys. And when we do the Makoro trips, we can get out, walk on the islands, and you can often find them roosting in these dark trees in the shade during the heat of the day. The time at Jacana will also give us a chance to look for some of the aquatic wildlife like the sitatunga, which can often be seen in the reed beds. It's one of the most sought after species in the Okavango Delta, but a tough guy to see. And also animals like the red lettre, which are found on those seasonally flooded grasslands. If you have a close look at this image, you can see here the straight line where the water is. This is actually a road that has been filled over with water. So you're literally driving through the water, doing your safaris through the water. So it really gives you a fantastic way of experiencing the Okavango Delta. So after the 3 nights at Jacana, where we've mixed up the itineraries with the Makoro boating and game drives, we'll then head to our last camp, which is Gamorti Tented Camp, situated down here in the southeastern corner of the Okavango Delta. I just want to highlight here that again, it's a spectacular flight across from Jacana to Gamorti Tented Camp. We fly over large parts of the Okavango Delta, as well as this big landmass here in the center of the Okavango Delta, which is known as Chief's Island. So it really is a spectacular flight. Also, just to highlight here, the flood waters come in from the top of the screen here, and they head down to this area, and a lot of them dissipate before they actually get down to this Gamorti Tented Camp area, or they flow out via the Gamorti Channel out through Maun. So this area here is particularly dry. A couple of water points there, and the wildlife in the dry season does congregate around those points. The camp where we stay, and this looks like a really new image, which it is Gamorti Tented Camp. Some of you may have stayed at Gamorti in the past. This year we've put the camp up on raised platforms, which it didn't used to be. So this helps just in terms of keeping it cool, and also just from a comfort point of view, it's a lot more comfortable having the camp on the raised platforms here. The camp itself has, again, 4 tents, and the main area overlooks a popular waterhole. The Gamorti area, there's a lot of thornfelt in this area, so acacia thornfelt, and it's a fantastic predator viewing area. There's actually quite a bit of predator research that goes on in that area. This photograph of a leopard up a tree with its kill was taken by Dave Luck, another one of our natural habitat expedition leaders. It's also a great place for seeing animals like spotted hyenas, amazing animals to watch. And I think one of the often forgotten about apex predators in the African wilderness. And this is a photograph that I snapped with my iPad when I was at Gomorti a couple of years ago. So it's not the sharpest image, but I just want to highlight here, this is the main area of the camp, situated under this grove of acacia area loba trees, or camel thorns as they're commonly known. And here's the small water hole, and we were there for 3 days, and each day we were there, the wild dogs came to drink. They were running through camp in the morning. So it's really, really productive game viewing area. So that is really the highlight of Gomorti, is the productive game viewing. And it also, the thornfelt areas attract a diverse array of bird species as well, like this crimson-breasted shrike, which is fairly common in the thornfelt of Gomorti Tentative Camp. And then just to finish up with Gomorti, it's also home to a lot of other wildlife, things like baboons, which you can see throughout the safari, giraffe again. I think we often focus on the predators, so to speak, but there's a huge variety of wildlife, from megafauna like elephants, hippos, that can be seen on the safari, to small things like tree squirrels, dwarf mongoose, banded mongoose in the camps. And the beauty about having an expedition leader on board with you from start to finish is he's going to make sure that you're getting the most of everything. It's not a rush. You really do have an opportunity to learn and understand, watch, spend a lot of time watching behavior, and also getting some fantastic photographs of things like baboons or whatever it might be that you are watching. So that's it. Basically, we finish up with 3 nights at Gomorti Tented Camp, and on our last day, after brunch, we will head across to Maun, which is a short flight, about 25 minutes, getting into Maun at about 11:30, 12 o'clock, in time for the connecting flights out of Maun. Just to highlight, I've touched on all of the key areas. A typical day on the secluded Botswana will see you being woken up just before first light or at first light. Our main goal is to get out early in the morning. It's when things are really active. We have a small bite before we get out there, and some tea or coffee. And then we'll spend quite a lot of time out there in the morning exploring everything that the bush throws at us. And we'll come back to camp late morning or around midday for a brunch. You do have some time for a siesta in the afternoon, or if you want to chat to your expedition leader about photographic stuff or anything, or do birding in the camp, they are on hand to assist. And then after afternoon tea and coffee at about 3 o'clock, we'll head out on an afternoon safari. That can either be boating, makoros, depending on the area, or a game drive. And in all of the areas that we operate, we are fortunate in that we can be out after dark, the Linyanti and Gomorti areas in particular, where we can do night rides as well, getting back to the camp after dark, and then having dinner often around the campfire under the stars, the African night, and having a great opportunity to view the African night skies, which is also a spectacular sight in itself. So this really is a fantastic safari. It's a 11-night, 12-day safari that takes in the key parts of northern Botswana as well as Victoria Falls. Diverse habitats, diverse range of accommodation. It's small group travel with fantastic expedition leaders. And whether it's your first time on safari or you've been many times, as a lot of people have been on many secluded Botswanas before, we know, this is a fantastic itinerary that will tick all the boxes from a safari point of view. So that's it from my side, and I'm now going to try and close my mouth after talking non-stop, just by finishing up to thank you all again for your time. I really do appreciate you taking time out of your day to learn a little bit about these beautiful areas in which we're fortunate to operate and visit on this spectacular safari. So that's it from my side. I'm sure there are a few questions that have come in, and I can try and answer them if they are here.
Well, Simon, thank you. This is Lee, and that was fabulous. And we could listen to you talk nonstop probably for half the day without being bored. So don't worry about that. So I will start with some photography questions. We have a couple of those, and one of them is about your choice of the best lens to use in Botswana. We have some travelers who are already scheduled to be there in April.
Okay, that's it's a very good question. A lot of it depends on if you've got two camera bodies and you can afford to bring two lenses, or if you're just carrying one. I think I'll just address it as if it's one lens. If I'm on safari and I could pick one lens to just carry around with me, it would probably be something like a 100 to 400 mil lens. You do get fairly close to the wildlife, and 100-400 also gives you an opportunity to get some great bird photography as well. So that's the beauty about that lens. For some of the more scenic stuff, you might need something like an 18-55 or something in that range. But for the wildlife, I'd say 100-400 is probably your banker range.
All right. Well, that's good to know. Thank you. And just following up on that, so for telephoto for birds is 400. Do you think that will be good?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. We do carry beanbags on the vehicle, so guests can rest the camera on the beanbags. There are some mounts on some of the vehicles as well. But a lot of the time you're going to be shooting from hand, and I think if you're carrying anything bigger than that, it can be tricky. We do get some guests with the new range of 200-400 lenses, which are pretty bulky. And if you can keep those steady, that works really well. But I think 400 is a good range for birds, wildlife, everything.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much. So on this trip, what's the maximum number of people that will be on the trip?
So the maximum we take on this safari is 7 people. And that can be a mix of people sharing or singles on the safari as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So this is probably our most popular question today, and one that I'm sure you get quite frequently. The question is, when is the best time of year to go in order to see the most wildlife?
Again, a good question. I think, when people think of Africa, there's a lot is made of the seasonality of certain areas. This particular trip, the time of year that it runs from May through to end of October into November, is, we've planned it specifically to tie in with the best times to be in all of these specific areas. Some of the areas might be more productive when there's water on this trip. Like the Okavango Delta, when the flood is in July, August, you can get a better feel for what the Okavango Delta is like. But then when the flood recedes a little bit, September into October, it might not be as productive. For instance, in the Jacana area, but some of the camps like Gomoti Tented Camp Linyanti, as it gets hotter and drier into October, for instance, it can be really, really productive from a game viewing point of view. So I don't think there's one set answer across all the camps that you're going to be in. Linyanti might be at its most productive in October, but the same might not be true for Jacana or Gomoti. So the reality is you can do this trip at any time of year that it operates, and you're in for a fantastic trip.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Let's see, a couple of logistic type questions. We have one here. It says, did I hear that the primary aircraft is a caravan? What? Oh, okay. Aircraft. Could you tell us a little bit about that one more time?
Sure. So most of the flights will be done with a Cessna Caravan, which has, it's got 11 seats, and the pilot will typically fly in that. So we'll often have a Cessna Caravan just for the secluded Botswana groups with no other passengers on them. There's a lot of the days where we're going to be the only people moving from particular airstrips. So on the first day out of Kasane into Linyanti Tented Camp, nobody else will be doing that. So most of the time we will have nobody else on that Cessna Caravan with us and have it pretty much to ourselves.
Okay, good. And we have several listeners asking about power supplies and whether there's a constant source of power into the guest tents in the evening.
Yes, so at Tokalea, Linyanti Tented Camp, Jacana, there's power in the main area and in the guest tents. At Gamorti, we have charging facilities for batteries in the main area only. So there is lighting in the tents from solar, but in terms of charging, which is what most people are looking for the power for, that is typically done in the main area at Gamorti. The other camps, it's all in the room.
Okay, and so if someone had something like a CPAP machine, would there be a way to make a
Yeah, we'll be able to make a plan with that. We've done that in the past with inverters, batteries, whatever needs be. So we have done that plenty of times over the years. So no problem with that.
Okay, thanks. So what about mosquitoes? I'm sure that's another question you get quite a bit. How bad are the mosquitoes?
So there are mosquitoes in Botswana. The thing with mosquitoes is they're most active when it's wet and when it's warm. And this safari typically runs in the majority of departures are in the cooler months. When the Okavango Delta is at its peak, at Jacana Camp, for instance, that's the only place where there'll be a lot of water. But that's at its peak in the coldest months. So yes, you might see some mosquitoes, but it's really not the most productive time for mosquitoes. They're far more active in summer after the rains when it's hot and wet everywhere. And our rainfall season is December through to about March. So we probably get, in the time that the secluded Botswana runs, we might have 3 or 4 days of rain in that entire period. So very low rainfall over that period. So there might be some, but very, very few.
Okay, thank you. Just a few more questions and then we can wrap it up. At night, how cold does it get?
So it can get pretty cold at night, and particularly the coldest times that guests often experience will be out on your morning safari, because you are out in an open Land Rover, you're driving through the bush, so you do have the wind chill factor. Just to put it in a Fahrenheit number, you're probably looking at about just over 40 degrees Fahrenheit. That would be about the coldest that it gets on safari. So we just encourage people to, put lots of layers on. By the middle of the day, it will probably be up to 70 plus. So it's just an hour or two early in the morning that it's really cold. But in your tents at night, there's plenty of warm stuff to keep you warm, hot water bottles in the beds, lots of blankets, duvets and stuff. So it's just that morning safari for me, which can be cold, but as long as you've got lots of layers, you'll be good.
Yeah, sounds cozy. It sounds perfect. Okay, well, I'm going to stop there. So, Simon, let me turn it back over to you now for closing comments.
Again, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time. I see we've still got pretty much the same number of people that started the webinar, which is always a great sign. And just to, for taking the time to listen about this fantastic country. And those of you who haven't been there before, it's one of Africa's truly great safari destinations. And I just urge you to, if you do have an opportunity to head out this way, you really are in for a trip of a lifetime in terms of what you're going to see and experience. And you'll definitely go away having made friends with some fantastic local people as well. So it really is an amazing trip.
Well, Simon, thank you for taking time to share all of this wonderful information with us. And everyone, I will get the replay out to you. So we'll do our best to have it out to you by about this time tomorrow. So be watching for your email inbox. At latest, it would be the next day, but our plan will be for tomorrow. So with that, we will say good day and conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks again, Simon.
Thank you. Thanks.